This is Rob Powell, and today in Tacx Turbo Talks we're talking to Sebastian Kienle about the 2019 Ironman World Championships. It's Monday, October the 21st, and we're just over a week after the Ironman World Championships in Hawaii. And we're going to look back at this event and more with the winner of the 2014 race. And this year he came third. And I guess he's actually the favorite triathlete of a lot of you out there. It's no one else than Sebastian Kienle. Welcome, Sebi. How are you?
Doing actually pretty all right. Of course, still a little bit banged up from the long travel. We stayed until Thursday in Kona, and then it's a long trip back. I hurt my hip flexor a little bit, so I have to get that checked out. But other than that, it's all right. After Kona, you're always a little bit kind of like lost, because for us as professional athletes, you kind of lost the meaning of life more or less, and so therefore it's always a little bit of a struggle in the first week till you actually really enjoy the downtime.
I was just about to ask how those post-Kona blues were, but how did you manage in the last week to sort of like relax and to wind down after that? Did you do anything specific?
We always go for a couple of days in the Four Seasons resort there. That's my favorite spot of the island, and it's also quite good to make peace with the island, so to say. The race is very demanding, and the week before the race, of course, is also a lot of stress. A lot of the attention is focused on this one race. That's the only time where the triathletes move out of the little nutshell of triathlon and got recognized from the mainstream media, and therefore that comes with a lot of stress for us as well. And so it's good to not leave the island with an impression that this is actually something stressful, negative, or that you link it with a lot of pain or whatsoever. So I always try to have a positive feeling when I leave the island, so that I come back with a positive feeling.
Is it something that you try to do like after every race? At least always take the positives out of it and write it down or line it up for yourself? Or
yes, I do. I try to really. Usually, I write a mail to my coach. Sometimes I will never send the mail actually, but it's good to get some thoughts together. Of course, directly after the race, you're very emotional often, and so it's good to look back. I would say a week after the race, and then probably even a month after the race. But that's just for the important races, obviously, and that always helps to have the right perspective and to improve long term.
So we're now about a week after the race. So what is that main takeaway that you have now from the race?
It's difficult to actually have a main takeaway from the race, but I would say the whole year was pretty good. I was struggling with my Achilles left and right for quite some time, since 2014 actually. There always have been stretches where I didn't really enjoy what I was doing, and this year it was really, really good actually, and I think I made a lot of progress in the right direction. At the end, I didn't reach the ultimate goal, and that was winning Kona again. But I still have to be very happy with my race. I think you see how fast the sport is progressing, and still the athletes who were on the circuit in the last 5 or 6 years, they constantly improve, and so therefore it's definitely not an easy ask to even make the podium, because I have the feeling there are more and more athletes who are actually capable of doing that in Kona. So therefore, I'm overall pretty happy with my race. Of course, there have been a couple of things where I'm not 100% happy, but that's, I think, totally normal.
Yeah, I think as you mentioned, like you were feeling a lot better on that run with that Achilles problems. Just your season in a recap: first Challenge Halle run, first the Challenge Championship, second in Frankfurt, fifth at the 70.3 Worlds, now third in Kona. And you actually said like that you believed when you started the run in Kona that you could still win. And at some point then during the run, you sort of realize, okay, Jan is just invincible probably today. So how do you cope then mentally when that sort of like reality hits you? Like, okay, it's not going to be for first, but I really want to get that podium.
I think the most important part happens before the race, to have a very high but realistic goal. And I knew that it's going to be very, very difficult to beat Jan. And if you go into the race and tell yourself everything else than a win is shit, well, then it's very difficult to even reach the finish line, probably, if you realize you're not gonna win the race anymore. And I know probably that was 2 years ago. I was running in second place behind Lionel Sanders, and I was so sure that I have really, really good chance to win the race. And at the end, I ended up being fourth place because it was very difficult for me to find reasons why I still want to push after I realized I will not win the race anymore. And so I really faded away in the last 10K. And after this race, I told myself, that's not like the right approach. I mean, you don't, of course, you want to look where you are in the race and what you have to do to catch the guy in front of you and stuff like that. But at the same time, you just want to, and I know this was said 100,000 times probably, but you want to give your own very best. And that's the most important thing at the end. And I think I had the feeling I had a couple of races like this that year. For example, in Nice, where I had a really, really shitty swim and also a subpar bike ride, I would say. But then I had an amazing run because I just realized I don't want to give up. And so I still had something positive to take away from that race. And the same applies for Challenge Samorin, for the championship, where I also had a really bad day on the bike, but I managed to somehow turn it around. And that's just, it's all about the attitude sometimes, especially towards yourself. And yeah, I think that's really important. I mean, especially in Kona, you see a lot of guys, they have the right to have a goal like, I want to be top 5. But if they realize during the race they can't fulfill this goal anymore, they either DNF the race or they're gonna just walk it home, more or less. And this happens in Kona a lot because a lot of the people have very, very, very high goals. And at one point, Kona destroys more dreams than it fulfills.
That's probably well put. And then there was another carrot for you, probably to get that third spot to finish on the podium, because it also means for next year you only sort of like have to validate your spot to be there again next year by finishing the Ironman. And I know you are on the list for Cozumel in, 4 weeks, I think.
Yeah.
Is that still a possible goal with your hip flexor, or?
Yes. So first of all, when you are in the race, you don't really think logical at one point. You don't know, okay, I'm in third place, I have to fight for that because that actually means Kona qualification. Or, I mean, the difference between a win and a second place is already enormous when it comes to the financial aspects. But it's also the difference between a third spot and a fourth spot is also quite significant when it comes to the financial aspect of it. The most sponsors just pay for top 3 and not for a fourth place. And so therefore, this makes a huge difference, not only with the validation, so that I just have to validate, but also financially. But you don't think like that during the race. During the race, it's just, there's other things that push you forward. And so after the race, I was really, really happy. After my whole crew was like, "Yeah, you already got the Kona slot, and this was actually it's gonna pay the bills for the year, you know." So it's interesting because I usually you get like these 5 years of period of you where you just have to validate when you win the race.
And
So
yours was
this
up.
period ended. Yeah, this period ended for me this year after my win in 2014. So I never had to really think about qualifying for Kona. But with the new system that got implemented last year, it's getting more and more difficult actually to qualify. And so therefore, I'm really happy that I made this third place. And yeah, so tomorrow I'm gonna have an MRI on my hip, and then we'll see. I mean, I just wanna be sure that I don't do anything stupid, because that's really easy, especially after a race like that. I still feel really good, and I would love to have the freedom to freely decide next year what I want to do and get this out of the way, because there's always something that can happen. When you validate in a race like Frankfurt, you probably be ill or have a mechanical in the race, or something else happens, and then it's July, and then you need to do another race, and this will cause a lot of stress. So therefore, it would be nice to get it out of the way. And I also really love the race in Cozumel. So therefore, if I get cleared from the dock, I might need another couple of days to try to heal up the hip flexor. But then I'll probably do it, and I'm still feel relatively fresh, and that will create some more space regarding next year with preparation and everything.
Yeah, and you in this you just mentioned as well, like that financial implication, but basically by finishing third rather than fourth. Now in fourth place was your good friend Ben Hoffmann. So I guess you were buying the beers after the race for him.
Absolutely, yeah, and for his family as well. I mean, we went through a lot together, to be honest, because last year he was not able to start the race, and I had a DNF in the race because of my heel Achilles injury, and so for him the whole story started basically with our start at the Cape Epic. It's a mountain bike stage race in South Africa. And he had a crash there, nothing too severe, but he fell on his back. And because he had Ironman South Africa just 2 weeks after the Cape Epic, he really listen to his body, I guess. He also wanted to validate the sport, and so he walked, or better put it that way, limped the marathon. And I know how tough of an athlete he is. I don't know anybody who trains that much volume. It's it's really crazy, and also inspiring for me when I'm staying in his place and watch his work ethic. But therefore he hurt himself even more doing this, and so because of our little adventure in South Africa, he more or less had a really, really bad year in 2018. So it was really good to see him come back like this and win Ironman South Africa earlier in the year. And of course, I'm happy that I beat him at the end for third place. But at the same time, it was just very good to see him back up there. In 2014, he was runner up to me in Kona. And I hope we can repeat that. I don't mind the order then.
Yeah, I think this also shows, like, there's often, and especially nowadays, maybe online, there's quite a bit of banter between all your triathletes. One guy in specific who was instigating it all, but at the same time, there's also a lot of friendship.
Oh yeah, I mean, I think there is also friendship because most of the guys they're like really honest and not holding back when they think there is something wrong or whatever, and so that creates a pretty good atmosphere amongst the athletes, and that's the reason why I really love the sport. I mean, um, yeah, I mean, I travel 240 days a year in the sport, and of course I train a lot with sometimes my direct competition for a pretty long time, and it's just, yeah, part of the reason why I really love the sport so much is you fight against each other and throw everything against each other in an 8-hour race, and then but when the race is over, I am still able to stay in Ben's house for 3.5 weeks and share a lot of training with him, and that's just really nice. Something I really love about the sport.
Yeah, you mentioned, like, obviously you're racing each other in that competition. Is that something that motivates you? And like you said after this race, I think as well on your in one of your posts, like you sort of like opened a new door in your house to that going to keep you going. Is that competition a part of that as well, or?
It's actually not that easy to answer. I think when I started the sport, I was really fueled by win every race I'm attending and beat everybody and make yourself a name, and just being respected from the other guys, and being recognized by the media, and of course trying to get these sponsorships and everything. And at one point you realize it's not forever. It's not, you can't do this another 10 years. In the 2-3 years ago, I never thought about that. At one point I actually not gonna do this anymore. And you always take everything for given. I didn't had any problems with injuries for maybe 10 years, and then I had 4 years where I sometimes get up in the morning and I could barely walk, and I was like, oh gosh, this is not good. Like, maybe I can't even do another year, and I have to end my career this year. And it was crazy because you think this is going on forever. You got so used to it. I'm in the sport for more than 25 years now, and 15 years as a professional. So I was kind of shocked because even 2 weeks of a break sometimes makes you really nervous and you don't know what you do the whole day, more or less. And so the motivation for this year, of course, it's still winning races and beat the other guys. But I also realized how much I just love what I'm doing, and being in all these wonderful places, and especially enjoying the level of freedom. I think that's something you need to get a little bit older to realize, that this is something very, very unusual. I think there's only a few people have this level of freedom I enjoy. I mean, if you race for a professional cycling team, they make your schedule. They tell you maybe you can't even win this race. You have to ride for another rider or whatsoever. So it's very difficult. And in triathlon, especially on the level I can decide pretty much everything myself. I can decide my equipment, my sponsors, the media I want to talk to, the races I want to do. That's all in my hands, and that's something you need a little bit time to realize, that this is not normal actually, that this is quite good. And so I really enjoyed the year and the progress I made in this year, and also realizing that the progress I made this year is not given. I mean, I'm 35 years of age now, and at one point you're not just get better because you get 1 year older or you get a little bit more experience or something like that. Now it's more you really have to look for all these little details, and I became really good at this, I think. And also I changed my coaches last year, and that also kind of fueled the motivation again, I think, for this year. And so I'm overall really, really happy with this year, even if there have been a couple of second places or third places where I would have loved to win.
Yeah, awesome. And looking at like sort of like the freedom, this is the Tacx Turbo Talks. So if you would have like the freedom to plan like your own Tacx workout, what is your favorite one that you then usually treat yourself to?
It's actually a quite tough one, and you always think, triathletes, they ride the bike for 180k, and so therefore usually they spend a lot of hours on the bike, and yes, that might be right, but on the other hand, you always have to try to up your limit to be comfortable at those longer rides and stuff like that. So during the winter, I rode a lot of really intense workouts, and I think that's really good to do them on the trainer. And one of them is just the classical 30-30 intervals. So that's maybe a 25-30 minute warm-up, and then it's 3 blocks of 10 by 30 seconds with 30 seconds rest. So I start doing them at like 430 watts per 30 seconds with 160 watts for the 30 seconds rest. And I just love that set, and I think it's only possible to do that on a good indoor trainer, because you have to be able to build up the power really quick and also dial back the power really quick, and that's really difficult to do outside. And I have the feeling that time flies by pretty fast. I don't need anything else than maybe some more aggressive music on my headphones, no TV or any other distraction or something like that. Just the screen with the Tacx app on, and and hit the numbers right. I think that's quite a motivation.
Is that something that your trainer came up with as well? Is it like a change maybe in your training, doing more high intensity stuff, or did you always do that?
I always did it, but maybe not as structured as it is now. So now it's really like very specific, and he's looking in any of the sets, and so it gets adjusted really, really quick. But therefore it's always interesting, but it's also always very, very demanding sometimes.
Yeah. I want to move on to usually we have the Tacx Turbo Talks fan question of the week, but we got flooded with questions for you this week, so we're trying to go through a couple of them. Maybe one related to the workouts indoor. A lot of people actually wanted to know what your FTP is.
I think it's just right now it's probably just a touch over 400. So for 20 minute typical FTP test. But it's very difficult to say actually, because I'm not training for a very high FTP. I find it very easy for me to up that quite a bit. So if I do specific workouts like the one I said, where you do a lot of VO2 max stuff or very high intensity short intervals, I would say my FTP in the winter is probably even 30 watts or maybe 35 watts higher than it is right now. Also due to the fact that for Kona I'm probably 3 kilos lighter, 4 kilos lighter than I am in the winter. So I know always the people want to have like this one number where they can say, oh, this is actually a good cyclist or is not a good cyclist. but that's just part of the story, you know. I mean,
Yeah, you're a triathlete, so you want to be balanced, and obviously, and it's not all about that bike leg.
yeah, sure. And it doesn't it doesn't tell how fast you can ride a bike. What's your FDP? So I bet there are a lot of cyclists. They have a lower FDP probably than me, but the problem is they are 15 kilograms lighter. So I have no chance on any on any major climb against guys like that, because they just push a way higher watt per kilogram. So the FDP is only interesting in relation to your body weight. That's one of the things. And the next thing is, for TT, if you ride these FDP on the road bike, but then on the TT bike, when you have very extreme position, you might lose like 25, 30 watts in that position. It's also quite difficult to say. It's just a power, because some people would push like enormous power, but they're not really having a very good aerodynamic. So that's also important. And then exactly what you said, for me, it's actually not that important. It's more important that I'm able to ride, let's say, 300 watts for 4.5 hours, and then still run a 2:44 marathon or something like that. That's for me way more important than having a 30 watt or 40 watt higher FDP.
Yeah. All right. Moving on to the next question, because this question actually was from Lorenzo, and he got a really great answer from you. So thanks for that. Next one, a question from Thomas, and he wanted to know, is it going to be Frankfurt or road in 2020?
I don't know yet. Like I said, I got an MRI tomorrow on my hip, and then I will decide. I mean, there's also a third option, that I don't do a long course race at all in German summer. But for now, I would love to do Cozumel and then be able to decide absolutely free what race I want to do. And that does not mean that I will definitely do Ross. I mean, I would love to have another chance against Jan for sure. And yeah, obviously he has to validate at one race as well. So, and Frankfurt and Ross are just the biggest races for us in Europe. And so there's a pretty high chance that it will be Patrick, Jan, and maybe me as well in Frankfurt again. But yeah, like I said, first I have to get this sorted, and then I will decide.
Yeah. Oscar wants to know, what's your favorite 70.3 course?
That's difficult to say. I've done quite a lot of the races, and a lot of the races have pretty unique courses and stuff like that. 70.3 in St. George, Utah is definitely one of my favorite courses, and a race I tried to win for a very long time, and I wasn't successful so far. And next year it's going to be a full distance. If he wants to have a really spectacular course and a very demanding course, it's definitely one of the races that are very very interesting. And then one of my first big successes as a professional was in Wiesbaden in Germany. And I also really loved that course. Unfortunately, the race is not around anymore. So that's a little bit of a bummer, but I really love that course. So in general, I love courses where there's some climbing and some technical aspects to the bike course. And therefore, I also love the course from this year's Ironman 70.3 World Championships in Nice. I think that was a pretty spectacular course, and so he got the general idea, I think.
Yeah, and then maybe even the 70.3 World's Taupo next year, who knows. Another one, Dani wants to know, where and how are you going to celebrate Christmas this year?
Oh, hopefully at home. That's one of the few occasions where I still meet my two sisters, my brother, and the whole family. And like I said, this year I've been traveling for for more than 250 days, or at least not at home. And so yes, I mean, that's also one of the things. As a teenager, I kind of never liked Christmas. I always thought it's a good idea to spend Christmas time in a training camp. But yeah, now you realize that's actually really something nice to get together as a family and yeah, enjoy that. So I hope I'm at home, but yeah, it's always difficult to say. Sometimes plans change quickly, but usually I'm always at home.
Okay, we got 3 more short questions. Christoph wants to know, what's your most inspiring human being? Who inspires you the most?
That's a big question. And to be honest, when I was younger, I think I had a lot of idols and role models and people that just inspired me. But when you grow up, you realize not all of the things are actually true, and that there is no such people as perfect human beings or whatsoever. So sometimes it's more the people that are really, really close to me, and it's different aspects of people. I mean, when I look at in sports, I think I don't have to look very far. It's for sure Jan Frodeno, who is inspiring me, also because I know him very well and I know that it's actually legit. And yeah, it's just he's definitely something. He's somebody that inspires me from a sports standpoint, but there's a lot of other people that inspire me and they have nothing to do with sports. For example, I studied physics, so Richard Feynman, for example, is somebody where I think like this is just an amazing guy. He is in a total different area than us people in the sport. But I always get inspired by people that are very good in what they do. It doesn't mean they have to do sport. It can be music. It can be science or whatsoever. So yeah.
Right, awesome. I sort of like gave you the opportunity to name Cam there, but if he listens, maybe. But we got. Let's see the question. Oh yeah, it is from Matthäus, and he says, "Sebi, if it's hurting me but not killing them, am I doing something wrong?"
Yeah, I realized that quite a lot this year. I was hurting a lot, but nobody got killed. Yeah, I think you have to hurt yourself for quite a long time until you actually can kill somebody when you're just hurting. So therefore, no, I think you're doing everything right, but you just have to keep pushing in this direction.
All right, awesome. Last one, who's going to be the next non-German Kona winner?
Wow, I think we thought about this for quite some time this year, and I think it's gonna be really, really interesting. And I just saw that Javi Gomez is on the start list for Ironman Malaysia, and that his plan is to race Kona again next year after the Olympics. I would not say that this is happening next year. I think next year, it's going to be another German win. I don't know who it is, but the year after, I would probably say if Javi gives it another try, I think he is somebody who's able to win the race. And then there's another guy, and I think not a lot of people have him on the screen yet, but I think his first name is Daniel. I'm not even sure. Beckegaard. Some people know him for a really nice victory celebration from one of the races.
Was that in Austria? Was that?
Yes, exactly. But I think this guy is actually he is a really nice guy, and I think so. Of course, he maybe overdid it a little bit with his victory ceremony, but I also love that he is just pumped. I mean, it just shows that this actually means something to him. And I think this year, he already swam in the first group in Kona, and then he had a mechanical on the bike, but so therefore nobody really took notice. But I would say take notice, because it will not be too long and this guy will appear on the podium. If he's going to be the next non-German winner, very difficult to say. But of course, I have to come up with something special, a dark horse who nobody else probably has on the list now. So I have Javi and I have Bekkegaard as my two guys. One very well-known guy and another one who probably will own this race in the future.
All right, awesome. Yeah, he finished 15th, I think, with that mechanical still. So yeah,
that's another thing why I think he's one of the guys to watch, because it's always easy to give up in Kona. You always find a reason why it's not a good day to finish the race. But especially if it's your first race, I think you should not take something like a mechanical as an excuse. I know I had a flat tire when I first raced in 2012, and I lost like 10 minutes because I had to wait for the neutral support. But at the end, I still finished 4th place, and I think it's very important to, especially on your first attempt, to realize this is a hard race and a lot of things can go wrong, but you can still turn it around somehow. And I think so it was important also for him to finish the race.
And I think it shows what you mentioned now about your experience 2012 as well, your character. Like, there are no shortcuts, so just always have to keep going for it.
Yeah, absolutely. Sometimes it's more, it's more rewarding to finish the race, and even if it was a very bad day, just have the feeling of sitting on this very long flight back home, and at least you tried everything. I mean, I can remember the feeling very, very well last year of not finishing the race, and I mean, it was not an easy decision, and sometimes, of course, you have to make this decision, especially if it's your that the health that's on the line, then you sometimes have to make this decision. But it was just really, really bad 2 months, and it takes definitely quite some time to get over it.
Yeah. All right, Sebi, I want to thank you so much for your time. It took way longer than we actually thought it would be with all those fan questions coming in. So yeah, thanks heaps.
Yeah, well, no worries. Thanks for having me.
And hopefully that MRI is going to come back with a good result tomorrow, and you can validate that spot in Cozumel, and after that have a sort of like relaxed Christmas, and then see what you're going to do in 2020.
Thanks a lot for following along.
All right. And thanks everyone for listening to this 25th episode of the Tacx Turbo Talks already again. If you enjoyed what you were hearing, leave a rating and review wherever you listen to this podcast. This was Rob Bouw with Sebastian Kienle. Stay tuned for the next Tacx Turbo Talks.